Chapter 11. So in Krishna book, chapter 11. Okay, Krishna book, chapter 11. Killing the demons, Vatsasura and Bakasura. When the twin Arjuna trees fell to the ground, making a sound like the falling of thunderbolts, all the inhabitants of Gokula, including Nand Maharaj, immediately came to the spot. They were very much astonished to see how the two great trees had suddenly fallen. Because they could find no reason for their falling down, they were puzzled. But when they saw Child Krishna bound up to the wooden mortar by the ropes of Mother Yashoda, they thought that it must have been caused by some demon. Otherwise, how was it possible? At the same time, they were very much perturbed because such uncommon incidents were always happening to Child Krishna. While the cowherd men were thus contemplating, the small children who were playing there informed the men that the trees had fallen because Krishna had pulled the wooden mortar with the ropes binding him. Krishna came in between the two trees, they explained, and the wooden mortar was topsy-turvied and stuck in between the trees. Krishna pulled the rope and the trees fell down. When the trees fell down, two very dazzling men came out of the trees and they said something to Krishna. Most of the cowherd men did not believe the statement of the children. They could not believe that such things were at all possible. Some of the men, however, believed them and told Nanda Maharaj, "Your child is different from all other children. He just might have done it." Nanda Maharaj smiled to hear about the extraordinary abilities of his son. He came forward and untied the knot just to free his wonderful child. After being freed by Nanda Maharaj, Krishna was taken unto the laps of the elder gopis. They took him away to the courtyard of the house and began to clap, praising his wonderful activities. Krishna danced along with their clapping, just like an ordinary child. The Supreme Lord Krishna, being completely controlled by the gopis, sang and danced just like the puppet in their hands. Sometimes Mother Yashoda used to ask Krishna to bring her a wooden plank for sitting. Although the wooden plank was too heavy to be carried by a child, still, somehow or other, Krishna would bring it to his mother. Sometimes his father, while worshipping Narayan, would ask him to bring his wooden slippers, and Krishna, with great difficulty, would put the slippers on his head and bring them to his father.
Hare Krishna. Hare Ram. There was a painting done showing this scene, Nanda Maharaj, or rather Krishna, carrying the wooden slippers of Nanda Maharaj, and done by the BBT artists, I think maybe Muralidhar Prabhu and the others. And the painting was brought to Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles. Prabhupada was sitting, and I happened to be there. And Prabhupada saw the painting, he became absorbed. He was just absorbed in the painting. And then he said, "Just see, I am a great hero. I have brought your shoes."
When he was asked to lift some heavy article and was unable to lift it, He would simply move his arms. In this way, daily, at every moment, he was a reservoir of all pleasure for his parents. The Lord was exhibiting such childish dealings with the inhabitants of Vrindavan because he wanted to show the great philosophers and sages searching after the absolute truth how the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is controlled by and subject to the desires of his pure devotees. One day, a fruit vendor came before the house of Nanda Maharaj, and upon seeing the vendor, called, "If anyone wants fruits, please come and take them from me." Child Krishna immediately took some grains in his palms and went to get the fruits in exchange. In those days, exchange was by barter. Therefore, Krishna might have seen his parents acquire fruits and other things, and by bartering grain, and so he imitated. But his palms were very small, and he was not very careful to hold the grains tight, so he was dropping them. The vendor who came to sell fruits saw this and was very much captivated by the beauty of the Lord, so she immediately accepted whatever few grains were left in his palms and filled his hands with fruits. In the meantime, the vendor saw that her whole basket of fruit had become filled with jewels. The Lord is the bestower of all benedictions. If someone gives something to the Lord, he is not the loser, he is the gainer by 1,000,000 times. One day, Lord Krishna, the liberator of the twin Arjuna trees, was playing with Balaram and the other children on the bank of the Yamuna. And because it was already late in the morning, Rohini, the mother of
Just
Balaram,
you can make.
because it was already late in the morning, Rohini, the mother of Balaram, went to call them back home. But Balaram and Krishna were so engrossed in playing with their friends that they did not wish to go back. They just engaged themselves in playing more and more. When Rohini was unable to take them back home, she went home and sent Mother Yashoda to call them again. Mother Yashoda was so affectionate toward her son that as soon as she came out to call him back home, her breast filled up with milk. She loudly cried, "My dear child, please come back home. Your time for lunch is already past." She then said, "My dear Krishna, oh my dear lotus-eyed child, please come and suck my breast. You have played enough. You must be very hungry, my dear little child. You must be tired from playing for so long." She also addressed Balaram thus, "My dear Rama, the glory of your family, my dear child, please come back with your younger brother, Krishna, immediately. You've been engaged in playing since early morning, and you must be very tired. Please come back and take your lunch at home. Your father, Nanda Maharaj, is waiting for you. He has to eat, so you must come back so he can eat." As soon as Krishna and Balaram heard that Nanda Maharaj was waiting for them and could not take his food in their absence, they started to return. Their playmates complained, "Krishna is leaving us just at the point when our playing is at the summit. Next time we shall not allow him to leave." His playmates then threatened not to allow him to play with them again. Krishna became afraid, and instead of going back home, he went back again to play with the boys. At that time, Mother Yashoda scolded the children and told Krishna, "My dear Krishna, do you think that you are a street boy? You have no home? Please come back to your home. I see that your body has become very dirty from playing since early morning. Now come home and take your bath. Besides, today is your birthday ceremony. Therefore, you should come back home and give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Don't you see how your playmates are decorated with ornaments by their mothers? You should also be cleansed and decorated with nice dress and ornaments. Please, therefore, come back, take your bath, dress yourself nicely, and then again you may go on playing. In this way, Mother Yashoda called back Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are worshipable by great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. She was thinking of them as her children. When Mother Yashoda's children, Krishna and Balaram, came home, she bathed them very nicely and dressed them with ornaments. She then called for the Brahmanas, and through her children, she gave many cows in charity for the occasion of Krishna's birthday. In this way, she performed the birthday ceremony of Krishna at home. After this incident, all the elder cowherd men assembled together, and Nand Maharaj presided. They began to consult amongst themselves how to stop the great disturbances in Mahavan on the account of the demons. In this meeting, Upananda, the brother of Nanda Maharaj, was present. He was considered to be learned and experienced, and he was a well wisher of Krishna and Balaram. He was a leader, and he addressed the meeting as follows: My dear friends, now we should leave here for another place, because we are continually finding that great demons are coming here to disturb the peaceful situation, and they are specially attempting to kill the small children. Just consider Putana and Krishna. It was simply by the grace of the Lord Hari that Krishna was saved from the hands of such a great demon. Next, the whirlwind demon took Krishna away into the sky, but by the grace of Lord Hari, he was saved, and the demon fell down on a stone slab and died. Very recently, this child was playing between two trees, and the trees fell down violently, and yet there was no injury to the child. So Lord Hari saved him again. Just imagine the calamity if this child or any other child playing with him were crushed by the falling trees. Considering all these incidents, we must conclude that this place is no longer safe. Let us leave. We have all been saved by different calamities by the grace of Lord Hari. Now we should be cautious and leave this place and reside somewhere where we can live peacefully. I think we should all go to the forest known as Vrindavan, where just now there are newly grown plants and herbs. It is very suitable for pasturing ground for our cows, and we and our families, the gopis with their children, can very peacefully live there. Near Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, which is very beautiful, and there are newly grown grass and fodder for the animals, so there will be no difficulty in living there. I therefore suggest that we start immediately. I therefore I therefore suggest that we start immediately for that beautiful place, as there is no need to waste any more time. Let us prepare all our carts immediately, and if you like, let us go, keeping all the cows in front. On hearing the statement of Upananda, all the cowherd men immediately agreed. Let us immediately go there. Everyone then loaded all their household furniture and utensils onto the carts and prepared to go to Vrindavan. All the children, women, and old men of the village were arranged on seats, and the cowherd men equipped themselves with bows and arrows to follow the carts. All the cows and bulls were placed in front along with their calves, and the men with their bows and arrows surrounded the herds and carts and began to blow on their horns and bungles. In this way, with tumultuous sound, they started for Vrindavan. And who can describe the damsels of Raja? They were all seated on the carts and were very beautifully dressed with ornaments and costly saris. They chanted the pastimes of Child Krishna as usual. Mother Yashoda and Mother Rohini were seated on a separate cart, and Krishna and Balaram were seated on their laps. While Mother Rohini and Yashoda were riding on the cart, they talked to Krishna and Balaram, and feeling the pleasure of such talks, they looked very, very beautiful. In this way, after reaching Vrindavan, where everyone lives eternally, very peacefully and happily, they encircled Vrindavan, drew all the carts together in a half circle, and in this way constructed a temporary residence. When Krishna and Balaram saw the beautiful appearance of Vrindavan, Govardhan Hill, and the banks of the river Yamuna, they felt very happy. As they grew up, they began talking with their parents and others in childish language, and thus they gave great pleasure to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Soon Krishna and Balaram had grown sufficiently to be given charge of the calves. Cowherd boys, from the very beginning of their childhood, are trained to take care of the cows, and their first responsibility is to take care of the little calves. So, along with the other little cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram went into the pasturing ground and took charge of the calves, and there they played with their playmates. While taking charge of the calves, sometimes the two brothers played on their flutes, and sometimes they played with amalaka fruits and bale fruits, just as small children play with balls. Sometimes they danced and made tinkling sounds with their ankle bells. Sometimes they made themselves into bulls and cows by covering themselves with blankets. Thus Krishna and Balaram played. The two brothers also used to imitate the sounds of the bulls and cows and play like two bulls fighting. Sometimes they used to imitate the sounds of various animals and birds. In this way, they enjoyed their childhood pastimes, apparently like ordinary mundane children. Once, when Krishna and Balaram were playing on the bank of the Yamuna, a demon of the name Vatsasura assumed the shape of a calf and came there intending to kill the brothers. By taking the shape of a calf, the demon could mingle with other calves. Krishna, however, specifically noticed this, and he immediately alerted Balaram about the entrance of the demon. Both brothers then silently approached him. Krishna caught hold of the demon calf by the two hind legs and tail, whipped him around very forcibly, and threw him up into a tree. The demon lost his life and fell down from the top of the tree to the ground. When the demon lay dead on the ground, all the playmates of Krishna congratulated him. Well done, and the demigods in the sky showered flowers with great satisfaction. In this way, the maintainers of the complete creation, Krishna and Balaram, used to take care of the calves every day, beginning in the morning, and thus they enjoyed their childhood pastimes as cowherd boys in Vrindavan. One day, all the cowherd boys went to the bank of the river Yamuna to water their calves. When the calves drank water from the Yamuna, the boys also drank. After drinking, when they were sitting on the bank of the river, they saw a huge animal which looked something like a heron and was as big as a hill. Its top was as strong as a thunderbolt. When they saw that unusual animal, they became afraid of it. The name of this beast was Bakasura, and he was a friend of Kamsa's. He appeared on the scene suddenly and immediately attacked Krishna with his pointed, sharp beak and quickly swallowed him up. When Krishna was thus swallowed, all the boys, headed by Balaram, became almost breathless, as if they had died. But when the Bakasura demon was swallowing up Krishna, he felt a burning, fiery sensation in his throat. This was due to the glowing effulgence of Krishna. The demon quickly threw Krishna up and tried to kill him by pinching him with his beak. Bakasura did not know that although Krishna was playing the part of a child of Nanda Maharaj, he was still the original father of Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe. Mother Yashoda's child, who is a reservoir of pleasure for the demigods, and who is the maintainer of saintly persons, caught hold of the great gigantic heron by the two halves of his beak, and before his cowherd boyfriends bifurcated his mouth, just as a child very easily splits a blade of grass. From the sky, the denizens of heavenly planets showered flowers like the maleka and the most fragrant of all flowers, as a token of their congratulations. Accompanying the showers of flowers was a vibration of bangals, drums, and conch shells. When the boys saw the showering of flowers and heard the celestial sounds, they were struck with wonder. And when they saw Krishna freed from the mouth of the great demon Bakasura, all of them, including Balaram, were so pleased that it seemed as if they had regained their very source of life. As soon as they saw Krishna coming toward them, They one after another embraced the son of Nanda and held him to their chests. After this, they assembled all the cows under their charge and began to return home. When they arrived home, they spoke of the wonderful activities of the son of Nanda. When the gopis and the cowherd men all heard the story from the boys, they felt great happiness because naturally they loved Krishna, and by hearing about his glories and victorious activities, they became still more affectionate toward him. Thinking that child Krishna had been saved from the mouth of death, they looked upon his face with great love and affection. They were full of anxiety and could not turn their faces from the vision of Krishna. The gopis and the men began to converse amongst themselves about how wonderful it was that child Krishna had been attacked in so many ways and so many times by so many demons, and yet the demons themselves had been killed and Krishna had remained uninjured. They continued to converse amongst themselves about how so many great demons in such fierce bodies had attacked Krishna to kill him, but by the grace of Hari had not been able to cause even a slight injury. Rather, they had died like small flies in a fire. Thus they remembered the words of Garga Muni, who had foretold, by dint of his vast knowledge of the Vedas and astrology, that this boy would be attacked by many demons. Now they were actually seeing that this was coming true, word for word. All the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, used to talk of the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Balaram, and they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. What was enjoyed 5,000 years ago by Nanda Maharaj can still be enjoyed by Krishna conscious persons simply by talking about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates. Balaram and Krishna enjoyed their childhood pastimes, imitating Lord Ramachandra's monkeys, who constructed the bridge over the ocean, and Hanuman, who jumped over the water to Ceylon. They used to imitate such pastimes among their friends, and so happily passed their childhood life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 11th chapter of Krishna, killing the demons, Vatsasura and Bakasura.
Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakoda Mayam Vadati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamanang Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanchakolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare So the trees suddenly fell, and everyone's wondering, why have these big trees fallen? They thought maybe it must have been some demon, and they were disturbed. These things were always going on. So then while the cowherd men were trying to figure out what had happened, some of Krishna's um, playmates, some of the small boys came and said, well, Krishna uh, had pulled the rope that was tying him to the mortar, and he pulled down the trees. And then the trees fell, and two dazzling men came out, and they said something to Krishna. So in this way, they gave their report, and most of the cowherd men dismissed it. But some thought, well, could be. There's all this very special child that might have happened. And Nanda Maharaj was smiling, thinking about how wonderful his son was, how capable. And he untied Krishna. And the gopis took them, Krishna on their laps, and they were praising Krishna and clapping, and Krishna was dancing according to their clapping. So he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of everything, but he was dancing like a puppet in the hands of the gopis. Then Krishna would be asked to do different things, bring a plank for sitting, and if it was too heavy, then still he would try to bring it. I think someplace, if something was too heavy and he couldn't lift it, he would just flap his arms, move his arms, and sometimes he brought Nanda Maharaj's shoes. We talked about that. So in this way, by his childish dealings, he brought great happiness to the residents of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada comments that Krishna wanted to show the great philosophers and sages who were searching after the absolute truth that here I am, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I'm controlled by the desires of my pure devotees. And then there's the incident of the fruit seller, where she was calling out, if anyone wants any fruits, come get them from me. Still, we hear the fruit sellers have their carts and they're going about, Amrud, 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 or, whatever the fruit might be. Chiku, chiku, chiku. So the fruit seller was there, and Krishna must have seen his father or his parents getting fruits by barter. So Krishna took some rice in his hands and went to get some fruit, but his hands he couldn't clench so expertly, and the grains were falling. But the fruit seller was so captivated at seeing Krishna that she loaded him up with fruits. And meanwhile, when she looked at her basket of fruit, she saw that it had become filled with jewels. And Prabhupada comments that if someone gives something to the Lord, he's not the loser, but the gainer by 1,000,000 times. Then there's this incident where Krishna's playing with his friends and lunchtime is coming. So Rohini went to call Krishna and Balaram back, but they kept playing. And so then Rohini asked Yashoda, you please call them. Because Yashoda is at the highest level of love for Krishna. So you please call them. So then Krishna and Balaram were ready to come. They heard that their father couldn't eat until they came. So they're ready to come. But then the boys said, if you leave, we're not going to play with you anymore. So then they came back to play. And then Yashoda Mai scolded them. You think you're a street boy? Get back home. And besides, you must be very hungry. And besides, today's your birthday, so you have to give cows to the Brahmins. In our Western culture, on our birthdays, we want presents. We expect to get gifts. And we let people know what we want. And maybe we're not very happy if we don't get what's on our list. All sorts of toys and this and that. But the Vedic culture is that on your birthday you give charity, especially to the Brahmins. And so Yashoda Mai gave charity to the Brahmins through Krishna. And in this way the things were going on. So then the cowherd men got together and they were discussing what to do. Like Gram Panchayat, they're the leaders of the village. So they got together. Always some disturbance here. Demons are always coming. It was only by the grace of Hari that the children were saved. This from the Putana and from the falling of the trees and from the whirlwind. But it's getting to be too much. We should shift. Upananda suggested, no, we should shift. So then they agreed that it would be good. The best place to go is Vrindavan. Govardhan Hill is there, nice fresh green grass for the cows. Jamuna's not far away. So let's go. So they loaded up the carts and prepared to go to Vrindavan. And the cows and bulls were placed in front, and there were some men with bows and arrows and blowing on horns and bugles to be the frontline protection, security force. And the gopis were seated in the carts, beautifully dressed. And Yashoda and Rohini were on a separate cart with Krishna and Balaram, and talking to Krishna and feeling very pleased, talking to Krishna and Balaram, and appearing very beautiful. So then they reached Vrindavan, where everyone lives eternally, very peacefully and happily. And they circled the carts together, and now for the first time Krishna and Balaram saw Vrindavan. Vrindavanam, Govardhanam. They saw Vrindavan, Govardhan Hill, the Jamuna. These were specifically the first things they saw. And they became very happy and began talking in childish language because they're still children. So gradually they grow up enough so that they can be entrusted with the cows. This is cowherd. This is life in the village. When you're old enough, then you're given a little responsibility. I remember I went one time here in Vrindavan to buy some spoons and something. So at the little shop, Bartanwala shop, so there's a little child sitting in front, and he's telling me the things, and the father is guiding him from behind what to, how to do everything. Here also, if you see the flower sellers, sometimes the little child will be there and he'll be flicking the water on the roses to keep them fresh, and so from a small age they're trained what to do. So the cowherd boys also, they know what to do. They're trained where they just imitate what their fathers do. When they're old enough, then they're given responsibility. They take care of the calves first. And it's great fun because while you're herding the calves, then you get to hang out. So you get to play. You're herding, you have it's work, but it's fun also. So they're throwing fruits around. Amalaki, you've seen these amla fruit, they're called, about this big, green. And so you can throw those. Or bigger, there's bale fruit, a little bigger than a fist. Maybe you've seen these. They're a pale green fruit, hard shell. Those who've been to Bombay, there's bale fruit trees in the courtyard. And they're common. They're not a very rare fruit. So they were playing like that, throwing bale fruits, throwing amalaki fruits, and having a good time. Sometimes they danced and their ankle bells tinkled. Sometimes they played like bulls and calves, where they imitated the sounds of the animals and birds. And so they enjoyed their pastimes, appearing just like ordinary children. So one time the Vatsasura came, the demon in the shape of a calf, with the intention of killing Krishna Balaram. But Krishna saw this is a demon pretending to be one of the boys, one of the calves. So he signaled to Balaram, and Krishna closed in on the demon and caught him by the hind legs and tossed him in a tree. And the demon died and fell to the ground. And all the playmates congratulated Krishna. Well done, good job. Another time, while they were on the bank of the Jamuna to water the calves, calves were drinking, boys were drinking, and the Bakasura came appearing like a heron, water bird with a big, sharp beak, but big. The animal was as big as a hill and seemed as strong as a thunderbolt, and all the boys were afraid. In fact, it was a demon, a friend of Kamsa's, and he tried to swallow Krishna with that beak. So he swallowed Krishna, but then Krishna became hot, and the demon felt fiery sensation within his throat, and so he coughed Krishna up and tried to kill him with his beak, stabbing. And he didn't know that Krishna, although he appeared like a small child, was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna caught hold of the two sides of his beak and bifurcated, which means split. He split the demon's beak in two, the way a child splits a blade of grass. And then again, the demigods were pleased and showered flowers, and there was bugling and the sound of drums. And the boys thought this was wonderful, hearing all these things. And then when they arrived home, they spoke about Krishna's wonderful activities, and the parents were hearing. Prabhupada said that every day the boys would come home, oh, mother, Krishna killed this big demon. And the mother would say, oh, Krishna is so wonderful. And in this way this is again kirtan. Sometimes the ladies were lodging complaints, Krishna is doing this and this and this. And here the boys are narrating the day's activities. But the day's news is all transcendental. It wasn't, this is what I read in the newspaper today, or these were the ordinary mundane activities. They were talking about the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This was Krishna Kirtan. And the gopis and the men would talk about how wonderful Krishna was. In this way, they were absorbed in thought of Krishna. And they felt that, Krishna's like he's come back from the dead, or he's been returned to us by the grace of God, so that even though these demons tried to kill him, by the grace of God, he's been saved. And they remembered how Gargamuni had predicted these things, and they thought, oh, great sage. And Prabhupada says that while talking of these wonderful activities of Krishna and Balaram, the men and women of Vrindavan were so absorbed that they forgot the threefold miseries of material existence. And Prabhupada said, even now, 5,000 years later, we can enjoy the same way simply by talking about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates. Then there's a little more about how Krishna and his friends imitated Ramchandra and the building of the stone bridge to Lanka. And in this way, they enjoyed happy childhood activities. Okay, are there some comments? Yes? Microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. There seems to be a tug of war between the different rasas. We see the rasa of parenthood and the rasa of friendship. Like Mother Yashoda and the children are vying for attention towards Krishna. Mother Yashoda is calling Krishna back home. Now, and then we see that later on, the location changes. The settings change completely from Gokul to Vrindavan. Now, the change of location, does he imply a particular rasa, particular mode? Because it seems like that the childhood pastimes, not the childhood pastimes, but the pastimes with the coward boys, they're more prominent in Vrindavan than Gokul.
One thing is, it's not exactly a tug of war. All the rasas are there. The servanthood is there, parental love is there, friendship is there, conjugal love is not yet manifest. But these rasas are there, and they're not in conflict, just as we hear that Krishna entered the assembly, the arena of Kamsa, and everyone is seeing Krishna according to his own personal relationship. So everything's going on simultaneously. And in one sense, the different rasas are enhancing one another. Akila Rasamrita Sindhu, Krishna is the ocean, all different tastes. So there's no conflict. So because Krishna is of a younger age, in Gokul, these pastimes are going on with the boys, childhood pastimes. In Vrindavan also, Krishna is enjoying with the cowherd boys. They go on. Now Krishna takes charge of the cows, takes on greater responsibility. Those things are still going on. But then the pastimes with the young gopis also become prominent in Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, we see the fullness of all the relationships. Thank you. Yes, in front of you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is regarding the charity. When it was birthday of Krishna, Krishna used to give cows or some kind of charity or donations.
Cows.
Yeah. So, like we are in Vrindavan and we see a lot of sadhus or some small kids are around Vrindavan, and whenever I go outside, they ask for the charity. How should I consider that they are the right person? Should I give charity or not? Because at one point I see that there are so many parents, they are forcing the kids to beg them. So I cannot understand, I cannot differentiate. Should I give donation or charity? Because at another point I see that there are children in front of me. So how can I do this?
Generally, how do we decide how to give charity? Various people are coming and begging, and sometimes children are begging, what would you say, engaged by the adults. They're sent out to beg. So how do we know whom to give charity to? Oh, of course, desha kale japatre cha taddanam itis satvikam. Charity in the mode of goodness is given to the right person, the right place, the right time. So generally, that means Prabhupada said to a qualified Brahmin, to Vaishnav. So we're not very much interested in giving charity to the poor and the beggars in general and those people. The mundane philanthropists think that helping the poor that's the best charity. But according to Shastra, best charity is to give to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Of course, here in Vrindavan, everyone is more or less a Vaishnav. And so the general advice, give something. Of course, here you give something to one child, you'll find there's 40 children all of a sudden. Just come out of nowhere. So you have to decide what you want to do. But something we can give sometimes. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to instruct his householders that they should give something, just so that they wouldn't become hard-hearted. No, I can't give money to these people because it's against religious principles, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, I spend freely for sense gratification, for my family, for my household maintenance, but I won't give to others. So he said they should give something. Doesn't have to be much. Not the 100 rupee note or something, but something. You'll see in Govardhan or other places that there are money changers, and you give them some rupees, and they give you small coins. So it's for that reason that you give something.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is just a follow-up question from yesterday regarding children being born in devotees' family. So we see, you said it's because of their past karma and obviously picking up from where they left. But also sometimes we see that those devotees, those children, after reaching maybe a teenage age, they start deviating. So again, meat eating and total deviation from devotional service.
So the children are born in devotee families by past good fortune, but sometimes we see that when they reach a certain age, they start deviating. And
is that because of karma, or
is it because of karma? Yes, that because otherwise, without karma, you wouldn't come back. You just go back to Godhead, be finished with it all. So by past fortunate activities, One may be born in a devotee family, but by past unfortunate activities, one may still have challenges, material attraction, and so on. And that's there. That's from one point of view. From another point of view, the parents should be so careful, parents and guardians, responsible persons, to protect the children from bad association. Sangat sanjayate kama. And children may be very good, but if they associate with materialistic children or materialistic people in general, they can be spoiled. The mundane schools are particularly bad. Prabhupada called them slaughterhouses. The mundane schools and colleges, slaughterhouses, because they're dedicated to training and material enjoyment. They mix the boys and the girls freely, which once they're a little grown is like a horrible policy. And the boys who are, initiated into sense gratification or following the path of sense gratification, try to engage the others in a similar way. We're trying to raise devotee children to be well situated on the path of bhakti, and these other people are being trained to be well situated on the path of karma and vikarma. So that association is destructive. So therefore Prabhupada wanted to have our own schools where the children would be raised in Krishna consciousness and not have this bad association. But anywhere there can be a bad association, so the guardians have to be very careful.
Here it says, they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. My question is that our day is very short. And
are they what?
Our days are very short.
Our days are short,
yeah. It feels like that. And we would like to dedicate so much time to hearing and chanting, and then to which extent are we allowed to neglect our bodily needs? Because it's easy for the mind to think.
To what extent we want to be engaged in hearing and chanting, to what extent in our short days can we neglect bodily needs? Yeah.
It's easy for the mind to think that, oh, it's unhealthy, but maybe it's not. So.
It's easy to think it's unhealthy, maybe it's not. Of course, here it doesn't say they forgot their bodily necessities, it says they forgot the threefold miseries. That's a different thing. A person who's absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he just forgets that they're, just when you're, you're having aches and pains or some kinds of issues, and you're sort of, and then if you get absorbed in some service, you forget about it. And then when the service is over, you go back. But if you're always engaged in service, always absorbed, then you forget, practically speaking, that you're in the material world in terms of the miseries that being in the material world involves. Anyone, if he's engaged in, if he's miserable, but then he's engaged in something he likes, he forgets. That's material, though. He's just shifting his consciousness from one mundane thing to another. Duality, happiness and distress. But devotees divert, as Prabhupada would say, their attention to the pastimes of Krishna, and so they forget the miseries of material existence. As for neglecting the body, Krishna says, Yukta ahara viharascha, Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, Yukta swapnavabodhasya yoga bhavati dukkha. One gets freed from material miseries by being regulated in one's ahara, one's eating, yukta ahara, one's recreation, one's endeavors, one's work, one's sleeping and rising. And one gets freed from all miseries. So the general theme is live a regulated life. Every day, do the same things at the same time, get up early, attend the Mangal Arati, take your bath, chant your rounds, take your prasadam, do some service. Again, take prasadam, more service. Regulated life. Not that you always have to be thinking about eating, always have to be thinking about, especially if it's regulated, those who are unregulated, they're eating at any which time, they're sleeping at any which time. They're, one day it's this, one day it's that, everything unregulated. That's conducive to disease and distress. So Ayurveda recommends every day do the same thing, same time, eat roughly the same amount. And, there can be some up and down. But by regulated eating, especially those who are vata predominant, because vata tends to go, the nature of vata, it's airy, and the air goes this way and that way. So especially for people with vata, its regulation is particularly recommended. Have a stable rhythm, stable pattern, and that will be conducive to good health, good activity, productivity, service. Every day, same thing. Just like here in Vrindavan, you'll see the villagers or the sadhus. Every day, same. That's the general recommendation. But for the service of Krishna, we can do all sorts, put out more energy. So we can go through all sorts of trouble or put aside all kinds of regulation to accomplish something for Krishna. Prabhupada would, there'd be marathons, whether book production, book distribution, life member making, whatever it might be. Prabhupada liked to see that we were stretched. Being stretched means no time to waste in Maya. So that's also good. We shouldn't imitate Raghunath Das Goswami, Rupa Goswami, that I'll just take 5 chickpeas and chant Harinam all day. We're not Raghunath Das Goswami or Rupa Goswami. We're better to be who we are and where we are and not imitate. According to our advancement, those who are actually advanced, they can, what is that? Nijahara viharakari vijito. The Goswamis practically forgot about their bodily necessities. Take a little buttermilk every couple of days, not because they were being austere, but just because they'd forget. They'd be so absorbed. Radha Krishna, Maharnisham Prabhajito, Jivartado Yomuna. They'd be just absorbed in thinking of Radha and Krishna, writing books, doing kirtan, eating. They would just forget. But we shouldn't imitate. can try to do more, not that, sorry, Prabhu, it's my regulation. I have to take prasadam exactly 12:15 every day. Not so. It should be a little flexible. But flexible means you have a baseline to be flexible from. Not that I have no routine. I have no sadhana means there's a routine. Every day, Mangalarti, such and such time, every day, this such and such time. That regulated life is very good for health and for Krishna consciousness and spiritual progress. Is that okay? Microphone. And we're going to stop early again because of the next program at 6:45. So we'll stop soon. Yes?
Yes. Here in the chapter just described how Vrindavan is a very nice place.
Very nice.
And there is maybe, as you said, one class previously, that there's a thick layer of covering of Yoga Maya, and we don't find it so easy to penetrate the deeper levels. But still we feel something. So once we come here, it seems to be such an awkward thing to leave this place. So how can we have integrity when we leave this place? I don't see how it is possible.
You take Vrindavan with you.
How to do that?
Prabhupada said Vrindavan it's the consciousness that creates Vrindavan. So, and what is that consciousness? It's Krishna consciousness, devotional service to Krishna. So, just to sit in Vrindavan when my spiritual master has some service wanted from me is my own sense gratification. And then I won't get the full benefit of Vrindavan. I'm just sort of overstaying my right to be here. I'm thinking I'm going to make great advancement because I'm in Vrindavan, or I'm in Radhakund, or I'm in here or there. Better to serve. And we can feel some separation from Vrindavan. I wish I were in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was expressing when he was on the Jayadvaita, and then he was going. He was on his way to America for some service, but he was feeling separation from Vrindavan and from Radha Damodar. So when we leave, we may also feel, I wish I could be in Vrindavan again. That feeling of separation is the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis. To feel separation from Krishna, to feel separation from Vrindavan. And on the other side, to feel the presence of Vrindavan by serving. Wherever you are in the world, if you're serving Krishna and serving your spiritual master, then you're advancing in Vrindavan consciousness. Okay? Anything else? Yes. Microphone.
You mentioned that we need to have regulation in eating, recreation, work, and everything. So, what is recreation?
The Yuktahara Viharascha. The simple, although it's given as recreation, the simple definition of vihara, one simple, that's in fact we'll find it for you, is walking. Let's see. don't always find things when I'm looking for them. Yeah. Yeah, to move on, to walk, to roam, to wander. That's sort of the basic meaning of vihar, of walking. Doesn't mean basketball, baseball, this ball, that ball. Prabhupada interestingly categorized that under the principle of idle sports. Gambling, no gambling, or idle sports. So Prabhupada put the baseball, football, basketball, and so on, all under idle sports. So that's not the recreation referred to here, the right amount of basketball, regulated tennis, but walking, or Prabhupada said dancing. Our recreation, Prabhupada said dancing in the kirtan. Or those who are going out and distributing books, they're doing very good, what's the word? Physical exercise. Bihar. And Prabhupada every day was taking his walk wherever he was in the world. In the morning, he would go on a walk for maybe an hour. And he attributed his health, good health generally, to massage and walking. So it's very beneficial to walk every day, especially those of us who have desk jobs, or sitting all day. It's not so good. And people are needlessly paying money to join gymnasiums and have a subscription at this place or that place. Prabhupada didn't consider it necessary to have a subscription at some gym, physical fitness place. And walked every day. The governments of the world spend so much money maintaining parks that most people don't have the time to go to. So the Hare Krishna devotees can take advantage and just go to some nice place and walk, vihar. Okay, we can stop here and have kirtan, and we still have some books, and anything else. And tomorrow is, I think there'll be a local parikrama program. And we'll come back early enough so that we can carry on here. Between now and then, Rukmini will have gotten some rest. She'll feel better. Okay.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kundi Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande.